Your voice, K-Talk AM 1150, where listening is a virtue.
KTLK, AM 1150, it is your voice. Use it on this day. Did you get into that Twitter mania? I'll tell you, they hit the ground running. The magic number, 26, and bam, it went from there. It is quite a contrast to the story I just told you about poverty in California. And yet, you know, when people start something like this, when people launch a company, there is no necessary guarantee that it's going to become a Twitter. So I wanted to reach out to someone who's really been an expert in terms of studying how there is a politics. There's a politic of business. You know, business is all intertwined with the timing, with many other things. So we've invited Professor Peter Mathews, our political analyst. Peter, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, David. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So I'm talking about the timing of this. You know, we've gotten past some of the hard stuff in Washington, D.C. I think Twitter kind of came around at a good time when there isn't anything else really that I think is taking people's attention all that. Oh, sure, the Affordable Care Act is there. But what do you see in that juxtaposition between Washington politics that are bogged down and investors looking for something to get excited about?
Well, here's the first news headline in the world today. Katy Perry just overtook Justin Bieber in Twitter followers. How do you like that?
Katy Perry beat Justin Bieber?
Yes, and guess who comes in third and fourth? Lady Gaga and President Obama. There you go. That tells you why Twitter is so popular right now.
So, Peter, when people start these ventures, obviously, as I said, there is no guarantee. But what do you read politically when you look at an IPO that goes multi-billion-dollar sky high in one day? Does this help to turn around some of the malaise in Washington, D.C. among the politicians into, hey, we got to jump on this and really take advantage of the momentum and get excited about moving America forward? What do you think?
Well, I think that's stretching it a little bit because this is a high-tech company, a NASDAQ. It's actually a not New York Stock Exchange company and not a NASDAQ company, but it's high-tech. So it's only one company, and I think what we have to look at is that Twitter became really credible when people thought of it as just kind of a fad, at the beginning, a silly fad, until people like politicians and celebrities and athletes started taking to it and coming up with these micro-blogs. So I think it became popular in a unique way. I wouldn't say that that's something to look up to as saying the whole economy is turning around right now.
No, and I would agree with you. I guess what I'm looking for is we're looking for the silver lining in the cloud of the economy because, look, when we look at it the other way, Peter, I just went through some numbers, and when you look at the real poverty statistics, there isn't much to get excited about. I mean, it's going to take us a while to dig out of that deep hole. So I guess I'm just looking for anything to just grab onto and say, hey, can we move forward? Can it help the bounce back? Your take on that?
This can certainly be a symbol, Dave, definitely, of the way to turn the economy
like that.
around.
A symbol is what you call it.
It's a symbol, a very silver lining. You're right in that sense. But you're right about the poverty. We'll get to that in just a minute. But Twitter is very interesting, and I think that it has – I know that it has –
Why do you like it? Why do you like it?
I like it, and I use it because you can do short messages to millions of people if you have followers. I mean, that's the thing. The key is getting followers, and there are 230 million users worldwide, by the way, 3/4 of whom come from outside the U.S. So it's a very interesting tool. It's been used in social movements in other countries even to get information out about political stuff, not just fun stuff. Politicians are using it, activists are using it, and certainly the fun stuff is there too.
I have to tell you, I think the fact that it's linked to a mobile device.
Yes.
And so you're not strapped down to a computer where you have to be sitting someplace. You can do it from wherever. And I know that I aggregate so many different news sources. When something big happens, Twitter is what I light up on my computer.
That's true.
Because
and 140 words is short. It's short enough. 140 characters, rather. It works really well.
So as we look at the contrast on this day, and that's what I've done in this segment, Peter, as we look at the contrast, let me move from just the obvious, hooray for Twitter, and I'm glad for them. More power to the guys. I mean, they took a big risk and it paid off. But let's move into the contrast between that and the latest statistics about both educational scores in California were 47th in 4th and 8th grade testing of English and math. And then we see poverty. We've got 3 million more people than we officially were told. What does this say about the road back, and what can policymakers do to help us get back on our footing sooner?
You know what, Dave? Those two statistics are connected. Poverty is connected to low scores, obviously. We've done a lot of studies, sociologists have found that it's much more telling whether your parents have enough income and time to be with you as a young child and nurture you in school than it is anything else as to whether you'll be successful. So it is true. The alternative poverty level is a new measure the Census Bureau put out. It's very interesting, Dave. If you go by the official poverty line for the federal government, it's $23,000 a year for a family of four.
Right.
Then you only have 16% poverty in the United States. It's still a lot. But when you have an alternative poverty measure like this new one, which includes costs for housing, medical care, clothing, utilities, and also includes government benefits. For example, nutrition assistance, housing assistance, energy assistance. You put those two together, how the alternative poverty measure, California's rate goes from 16% to 23.8%. That means, you know how many million people? 9 million people in poverty in California, Dave. That is humongous. And the United States has 15 million Americans in poverty. There's no excuse for that. Politicians have to get on the ball and bring back opportunity, and they've got to do it in many different ways. But that's something to think about right there.
Well, let me ask you this, Peter, because you've touched on this before, and I was just remembering also that the intellectual prowess of California is immense. I mean, we're probably one of the most innovative states in America, and yet a lot of this intellectual profit isn't benefiting communities that need some of that support right here in the states where we are based and where we live. You've called for some changes in the way corporations are taxed and in the way in which they are responsible corporate citizens. What do you think about taking another look, especially when you look at these latest statistics about poverty in California?
Yeah, I think it's horrendous because California now has become the number one, with the highest poverty rate state in the United States, in the Union. Number one state out of 50, and yet it's a state that's like a nation. We're seventh largest economy in the world, and we've got all this high-tech prowess and new technology. It's got to trickle. It cannot trickle down, Dave. You've got to build up the California economy from the ground up, which means educating our people, helping them come out of poverty with social programs that would help them eat well, help them have time to be with their children by reducing their work hours and increasing pay. Minimum wage needs to go up. But to help small business, we need to reduce the taxes on small business to compensate and give small business some capital. Get them some working capital from public sources. If you have to have a small business loan that's more streamlined, we've got to do it because they're the ones that create the jobs. And that's how you'll build it from the ground up. You've got to rebuild the economy from the ground up, Dave. It can't be from the top down. It's never worked. Trickle down has never worked for the majority of people.
It never seemed to trickle down on me, I got to tell you, Peter.
No, I say we got trickled on, not down.
Professor Peter, hey, leave the humor to me. You could hurt yourself. Hey, thank you very much. Professor Peter Mathews from Cypress College, more than 3 decades, looking at things like today's IPO. And then there is this nexus between that on Wall Street and what happens in Washington, D.C. One company doesn't make a trend, but I do think there is something to be said tonight about people who will be talking about the IPO that went well and maybe say, could that be a catalyst for more? I would like to see it that way. We have so many needs in America right now, and this is why when I look at people who are doing mentoring programs, getting them ready for certification and contracts. We're going to have him on soon. Gilbert Buchanan & Associates, the guy who was the drill sergeant in getting small business ready for these opportunities. Who knows? There might be another Twitter in the audience right now, but you have to know how to get packaged. That's really what Peter Mathews is talking about, our professor and political analyst here on the show.
Your voice, K-Talk AM 1150.